I was in the company of John Lennox, Professor John Lennox from Oxford University just recently, and had the privilege of listening to him speak. And a couple of years ago, I remember watching one of his debates with Richard Dawkins, and most neutrals felt that he wiped the floor with Richard Dawkins. Whether you believe that or not, well, you can watch the debates for yourself. You can buy the DVDs. But he's debated other people like Christopher Hitchens and so on. But what struck me, and I had the opportunity to ask John Lennox about it, was not that the brilliance of his arguments. He's a professor of mathematics, as I said, at Oxford University, but it wasn't the brilliance or the cleverness of his arguments. It's the gracious way in which he argued and debated with Dawkins. I was actually quite moved by the way in which he handled Dawkins. I mean, Dawkins obviously got angry at moments. I mean, he's a very angry man. And John Lennox just dealt with him in absolute grace and patience and kindness and Christian love. It inspired me to go online to Richard Dawkins' own personal website. And there I came across a campaign that he's running where you can get yourself a badge with the letter A on it. I presume the letter A stands for atheist. I can think of other things that it stands for, but I think that's what he means by it. And it represents a campaign that he's running, and it's the Come Out campaign. Or in other words, the Declare That You Believe in Nothing campaign, which seems quite absurd, that people are walking around wearing badges and with car stickers that declare, I don't believe in anything. I guess that's liberating, if that's what you're into. It reminds me of the British Humanist campaign in London and in other British cities, where they ran on the side of the Bentley buses, the poster, there is probably no God, so stop worrying and enjoy your life. It's hardly a ringing endorsement for atheism. Some wag with a little bit of money has invested in advertising on the sides of buses in Oxford, and apparently in Oxford today you can see a bus driving around with the slogan on it, there is probably no Dawkins. I mean, you can believe what you want, can't you? But what struck me was the grace with which John Lennox handled Richard Dawkins. It's encouraged me to get into one of John Lennox's newest books, which is called Gunning for God. And like me, Professor John Lennox was brought up in Northern Ireland, where religion has led to incredible amounts of conflict and pain and violence. And it's just a reminder that religion's not the answer. I'm a preacher, but I'm not a preacher of religion. It was the grace that Lennox displayed in those debates that struck me. The grace that seems somewhat missing at St Paul's Cathedral just recently. Have you been watching that on the news? The Occupy London campaigners have been camping out on the steps and in the grounds of St Paul's Cathedral. They've been there because they couldn't get access to the grounds around the Bank of England or the Stock Exchange. And it was the nearest next best thing to camp out at St Paul's. And I did, as I watched that, think, what an opportunity that St Paul's Cathedral staff have got to love those people, to give them soup and rolls and to feed them physically and spiritually, to throw the doors open and to invite them to come in and share with them in worship and to hear about the God who really loves them and cares about everything that they care about. But unfortunately, the opportunity seems to have been missed. That opportunity to show Christian grace didn't happen. Did make me think, mind you, what would happen if someone was camping out on our steps at our church, in a car park at your church, on your front garden, or in your driveway? Sadly, I think we'd probably not show them grace. We'd say, look, don't you know people need access to this door? And we'd move them on. See, grace is the difference. Grace can be understood by the acrostic, God's riches at Christ's expense. Grace marks Christians out as being different. Grace marks Christianity out as not a religion, but a relationship. It was the same grace that I saw displayed in the interview that I watched on television just this week with James Corden as he was in conversation with Piers Morgan. Now, I'm no fan of Piers Morgan, but I discovered about James Corden that he was brought up in a devout Christian home where, as a family, they went every Sunday to the Salvation Army. A few years ago, James Corden had a number of programs on television that were absolutely slated in the press. They were trashed by the critics, and he hit rock bottom. His life started to break apart. He became not a very nice person by his own admittance. And one day his mum and dad just put their arms around him and said, "James, can we pray with you?" And he said yes. And as they prayed with him, both he and they recognized that that moment was the turning point in his life as he got things back on track. And things have changed, things have turned around, and he's the popular, easygoing British comic that most people love and enjoy seeing on television today. But what changed in him was a moment of grace. It was an introduction of someone else into the relationship. It was opening up and inviting God to come and play a part. It's that invitation of God to play a part that I have admired in John Lennox's debates with Dawkins. It's that grace that I felt perhaps was missing at St. Paul's, but hey, maybe it's missing in our church too. And it was that grace that invited God into James Corden's situation. And it's that grace that can bring God into your circumstances today. Why not pray a prayer? Why not open up and say, "Hey God, please play a part in my life today." God bless you.